Who the hell does Harry think he is?
You think they may have to sell the house, which would be humiliating for Meghan, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The Daily Mail wants $75 million and could well bankrupt Prince Harry.
Can you give me a prediction for when I'm talking to you this time, 2027? Where will Harry and Meghan be?
Stripped of their titles.
The California dream Harry and Meghan spent years presenting as their great escape may now be facing its most dangerous test yet. Harry lost a major court battle. The newspaper group on the other side wants its legal costs recovered, and commentators are warning that the total fight could involve more than $75 million.
Harry can effectively face an unlimited legal bill. You heard me right. Paul Dacre is leaning on the judge to make Harry face unlimited costs, which is wild.
That does not mean Harry personally owes every cent of that figure, but even a smaller share could place enormous pressure on the expensive life the Sussexes built in Montecito. Their mansion was supposed to prove that leaving royal duty made them wealthier, safer, and independent. It represented privacy, status, and control.
And Harry's statement by itself pretty much could have cost Elton John $10 million. Now, I don't care how good of friends we are. If you cost me $10 million by not knowing when to shut your trap, we're not friends anymore.
But what happens if Harry's determination to keep fighting the British press becomes the very reason that home can no longer be protected? And what happens inside the marriage when Meghan begins to see his personal crusade not as courage, but as a threat to everything they created together? The most important legal fact is already painfully simple. Harry did not win. He entered the case believing he could expose wrongdoing and defeat one of the strongest newspaper groups in Britain.
What a diabolical week!
Instead, he walked away from the ruling with a loss and the prospect of a frightening costs decision still hanging over him. Then, before the financial consequences were fully decided, Harry publicly described the result as a complete and obvious whitewash. That reaction may have satisfied his anger for a moment, but it did nothing to reduce the possible bill.
You know, Justice Nicklin, the judge that Harry attacked, is allowed to uncap the amount that the Daily Mail can get. We'll find out on July 29th.
Critics called the statement reckless because the same legal system he attacked still influences how costly the defeat may become. Meghan did not need Harry to deliver another emotional attack. She needed restraint, strategy, and a plan to protect their finances. Yet once again, his anger may have transformed a serious setback into an even larger crisis.
Harry has to rely on people to get by because he's been such a failure in his own right. I think it's quite frankly embarrassing.
Before we continue, one quick thing. One thing I've realized is that most families don't have their important information organized in one place. That's exactly why I recommend the Family Vault, a simple, printable, and fillable organizer where you can keep everything from important documents and insurance to medical information, passwords. You'll find the link in the description, or you can simply scan the QR code on your screen. Now let's get back to today's story. And this is where Meghan's position becomes impossible to ignore. Reports suggest she understood the financial risk before the final numbers were known. Harry grew up in a world where homes, security, staff, and travel were handled by an institution larger than him. He did not spend his early adult life building an ordinary household budget or wondering how long a bank balance would survive years of enormous expenses. Meghan, however,
Attacking a judge who could basically give the Daily Mail a lot more, tens of millions more, is not smart.
has always promoted herself as practical, ambitious, and commercially aware. Her entire post-royal image depends on the idea that she can make smart decisions, build businesses, and control her own future. So imagine the tension if she warned Harry that another legal battle could damage their home and he pushed forward anyway. He was not only gambling with his own money.
Elton, according to Paula, has had enough because he might be the one that has to bail him out because initially, before this case started, Elton had actually said that he would help Harry out.
He was potentially gambling with Meghan's business plans, her security, her image, and the California lifestyle she uses as evidence that Megxit was a success. That lifestyle costs far more than most people can imagine. The Montecito estate is not simply a large house with beautiful gardens. It reportedly comes with a substantial mortgage, constant maintenance, insurance, staff, and some of the most expensive private security in the world.
Elton John, the one man with enough money to save this guy, finally says enough. Finally says, no, Duke, I'm not your bank.
Then add lawyers, public relations, private travel, and business expenses. A fortune that appears endless from the outside can shrink rapidly when millions leave the account every year. $20 or $30 million sounds like permanent wealth, until a family is spending several million annually and suddenly faces another enormous legal demand. That is why the $75 million figure has created so much panic around this story.
I think they live in a house which has something like 15 bathrooms or something.
Yeah, correct.
That takes, in America, the cost
Oh,
is effectively of the council tax, because they have a police force and they have a way of making roads and everything. It costs a fortune. That place would probably cost them on its own, just to run the house, I'm guessing, I don't know, a couple of $100,000 a year.
easy. And
So
then there's the
Bill-
private security, and they've got a place in Portugal, which they're having done up at the moment.
Yeah.
International travel. They've got a staff, which are a very long-suffering group of people.
It may represent wider costs rather than a confirmed bill addressed only to Harry, but even a fraction could force choices the Sussexes never expected to make. The first question is obvious. Where would the money come from? Harry's memoir reportedly generated a major payday, but a book advance is not a salary that arrives forever. Inheritance can be used up.
Harry and Meghan's Hollywood dream has the bubble has burst.
A successful documentary deal can end. One profitable contract cannot automatically finance decades of guards, staff, mortgages, travel, and litigation. Meghan has launched projects, promoted lifestyle products, and worked to present herself as a serious founder and producer. But how much stable income are those ventures delivering compared with the amount required to maintain their public life? Spotify ended its agreement with them.
The other aspect to it, and this is the one to watch for, is whether his home outside, fashionable, huge, 8,000 bedrooms, 9,000 bathrooms, 4 million square miles of LA, right? I wonder whether that goes for sale. We are deciding that the house
Yeah.
is too big for us.
Wow.
Right?
You
The
think
house
they
is
may
too big
have to
for us.
sell the house,
And
which
we're
will be
trading down.
humiliating for Meghan, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and we're going to move to Preston.
Their streaming projects have not consistently matched the giant expectations that followed their royal departure. Attention remains high, but attention alone does not pay security teams or court costs. The bank account does not care about headlines or titles. It only records what arrives and disappears. This is why the possible loss of the mansion has suddenly entered the conversation.
Not only did you lose the case, but I'm saying that he might have lost Elton John.
Former newspaper editor Kelvin McKenzie has predicted that the Sussexes may eventually have to put the property on the market if the financial pressure becomes severe. There is no confirmation that the home is currently listed for sale, and prediction is not proof. But the fact that public figures are even discussing that possibility shows how far the narrative has fallen.
He and Meghan also killed their own American dream with excessive greed, very many dismal productions, and the inability to learn and grow. They thought that the royal title gave them everything, but as it turns out, it gave them some things, but now they'll probably end up with nothing.
For years, Montecito was displayed as their sanctuary after Britain. It was where Meghan could live behind gates, host famous friends, and film controlled appearances. Selling it under pressure would not feel like an ordinary move. It would look like the most visible symbol of their independence had become too expensive to keep. Of course, their representatives could describe a sale as downsizing, relocating, or choosing a simpler family life.
They don't seem to have any charities. They don't seem to have any public work. They don't seem to be out and about particularly very much, apart from a few kind of local things. Or, it was a slight surprise to see Harry at the Time 100 the other day.
They could say the property no longer suited their needs, or that another location offered better privacy. But would the public accept that explanation if it happened after a major legal defeat and reports of a multi-million-dollar costs battle? Every moving truck would become a headline. Every photograph of the gates would be treated like evidence that Harry's war with the press had finally reached his own front door.
Money talks and bullshit walks. And so I expect you to see over the next year him showing a lot of interest in how well his dad is. Can I pop over to see you? Get about the insurance. Do you know what? I've always loved you. My brother, my closest friend. Blood is stronger than, is thicker than water. I can hear this. I can hear all the old tosh.
Meghan spent years using the California house as a visual answer to anyone who doubted her decision to leave royal life. The message was clear. She did not need palace rooms because she had built a palace of her own. A forced sale would reverse that message overnight. Think about what that would mean for Meghan personally. The mansion is tied directly to her identity as a woman who escaped an institution, took control, and upgraded her future.
It seems the American dream and bubble has burst, and they now want to come over here a lot more often, including Meghan, who's up for it. How's that going to work then?
I'm not sure it is going to work.
Imagine strangers touring the rooms while newspapers ask whether the couple can still afford them. Imagine Meghan watching a home she used as a symbol of victory become a symbol of retreat. She wanted freedom from royal restrictions, but selling the property because of Harry's choices would make her feel trapped by a completely different system. His anger, his lawsuits, and his refusal to stop fighting old enemies. At some point, she may have to ask whether she left one exhausting institution only to build her future around a husband whose unresolved battles create a new crisis every year.
Meghan was concerned about this case. And of course, these claimants did try to settle at the end of December last year, right through Christmas. They were trying to settle with the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail was like, no, absolutely not. We want everything public.
That question becomes even sharper when Elton John enters the story. Elton was never just another celebrity standing beside Harry for publicity. He was close to Princess Diana, supported the couple after their royal exit, and performed at their wedding. For years, he represented the kind of friendship that made the Sussexes appear surrounded by powerful, wealthy, and loyal allies. Yet reports now suggest Elton has refused to become a financial rescue plan for Harry and, in effect, made it clear that he is not an ATM.
Harry asked Elton to donate to Invictus Birmingham, my insider said. Harry feels John brought him into this whole lawsuit and therefore should help him out with Invictus. Elton is not a bank. My source added. Elton said no, and Harry was very hurt.
Harry reportedly sought support linked to Invictus and believed Elton should contribute because of his involvement in the wider legal action. Elton reportedly refused, and Harry was said to feel deeply disappointed. But why should Elton be expected to write an unlimited check? Wealthy friends are still allowed to have boundaries. Elton's support did not mean he agreed to finance every consequence of Harry's decisions.
I mean, how bad could things get for Harry? Could he run out of cash?
Right. So this is where you're going to start seeing, the brave new world begin to collapse in. I bet my rear end to London Bridge that what starts to happen is that he starts to repair his relationship with the royal family over here.
Reports also indicate that Elton did not join Harry's furious public attack on the judgment. That difference matters. Elton may prefer to accept the outcome, pay whatever responsibility falls to him, and move on. Harry appears unable to let the defeat end quietly. He wants to condemn the ruling, continue the argument, and demand loyalty from everyone around him. If his reaction makes the conflict more expensive, why would Elton volunteer to cover it? And how humiliating is it for Harry if one of the richest and most protective figures in his circle is finally saying that enough is enough?
And I don't think he is just going to continue coughing up millions and millions and millions of pounds here. He will want to take the loss and move on. And that's the problem for Harry, because what's Harry going to move on to? What does he have to move on to? Nothing.
Meghan may privately understand Elton's position better than Harry does. She cannot build a business while assuming famous friends will rescue them whenever another court fight goes wrong. Every dollar directed toward legal costs is money that cannot fund her products, productions, staff, security, or future plans. If Elton refuses to help, Meghan may see it as a warning that their powerful social circle is no longer willing to absorb Harry's chaos. Harry, however, may interpret that refusal as betrayal. He could believe that people who supported him when the battle began should remain beside him regardless of the price. That disagreement is not really about Elton. It is about Harry's definition of loyalty and Meghan's definition of survival.
Meghan was concerned because she actually understands outflow, inflow, bank accounts, whereas Harry has no concept of it. I don't think he's ever carried cash before in his life. I doubt he carries cash right now.
And money pressure never remains limited to spreadsheets. It follows a couple into every room. It changes holidays, business plans, property decisions, and ordinary conversations. Meghan may argue that Harry must stop filing cases, attacking institutions, and spending family resources on conflicts rooted in his past. Harry may respond that she knew justice mattered to him and should stand beside him even when the cost becomes painful. She may accuse him of endangering their future. He may accuse her of caring more about the mansion and Hollywood acceptance than the emotional wounds driving him. Those are not disagreements that disappear after one apology. They strike at the center of who each person believes they are.
After Diana's death, John took it upon himself to be a godfather-like father figure to her sons and formed a close bond with Harry. He performed at Harry and Meghan's wedding, stood behind the couple when they took their freedom flight after ditching the royal family and their royal duties, loaned them his private jet to come and see him in the south of France in 2019, as well as Ibiza, and donated to Harry's now defunct Archewell Foundation. But the loss to the Daily Mail may have broken the bond, or at least weakened it. Because finally, it seems, Elton has had enough of the wayward and hot-tempered prince and has told Harry, "I am not an ATM."
For Meghan, Harry was once the key that opened almost every door. His title, family, and global fame turned her into one of the most discussed women in the world. Publishers and producers offered enormous deals because the couple had something few celebrities could offer: direct access to royal drama. Harry helped transform Meghan's future overnight. But what happens when the man who created that opportunity becomes its greatest financial danger? Does she continue to see the prince who made her globally important? Or does she begin to see the husband who could force her to sell the home built to prove their partnership worked?
So first of all, getting friendly. Always loved you, Daddy. Never said a nasty word about it. No. That book, somebody else wrote that. It was ghosted. I was as shocked as you were when it appeared. Something got lost in translation. I understand that, son. No father wants to have a full-scale war. Right, so he sees all this.
That change in perception could be devastating. Harry may feel equally trapped. He could believe Meghan loved the doors his name opened, but has little patience for the pain that made him want to leave royal life in the first place. He may think she supports his principles only when they produce sympathy, money, or positive publicity. If she demands that he abandon the legal battles, he may hear that as a demand to abandon part of himself. Yet Meghan could reasonably ask why the family must continue paying for enemies and grievances that existed long before their California life began. Harry wanted Meghan to help him escape the palace.
It's about maturity. Harry is still basically an angry 13-year-old acting like it in all ways, saying, I said this is right. How dare you question me? We saw that throughout the trial.
Meghan wanted Harry to help her build a global empire. Now both could believe the other is breaking the original promise. The pressure becomes even more dangerous if their projects cannot quickly replace the money leaving the account. What could they realistically sell? Designer clothing would barely touch a major legal bill. Another podcast cannot guarantee tens of millions. A television appearance brings publicity, not dependable income. Harry could produce another memoir, yet that might require revealing even more private stories and destroying additional relationships.
You lot are now going to want to spend more time in a country you found abhorrent, sucking up to an institution that you called racist. Suddenly your kids, the prince and princess, you want those titles. It is complete hypocrisy by both of them. And again, a bit like politicians, do they not suss out that the British public, the silent majority, have an opinion of them that, frankly, isn't going to change?
Meghan could expand her lifestyle brand, but jam, cooking content, and celebrity events cannot instantly generate the type of cash needed to solve a giant court problem. Their largest visible asset remains the home. That is why the mansion keeps returning to the center of this story, even without confirmation that a sale is planned. Then there is another threat to the Sussex image: the royal titles. Jeremy Kyle has predicted that Harry and Meghan could lose their titles by 2027. That is only a prediction, not an official palace announcement, and there is currently no confirmed process removing them. Still, the suggestion arrives at an extremely damaging moment. Their major contracts have faced questions. Harry is dealing with a potentially severe costs decision.
And as a result of this latest brutal move by the publishers of the Daily Mail, it could leave Harry penniless and facing ruin. Be clear, folks, the Daily Mail are angry and they are waging war on the Duke.
Before we continue, I want to mention something really quick. Organizing your family's important information is one of those things most of us know we should do, but we keep putting it off. That's exactly why there's the Family Vault. It gives you one place to organize your important documents, insurance, medical information, passwords, and more, so everything is easy to find when it's needed. You'll find the link in the description, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. That's all. Now, let's get back to today's story. Elton reportedly will not rescue him, and commentators are openly discussing whether Montecito can survive the pressure. If the money becomes weaker, the famous friendships become less reliable, and the house disappears. The Duke and Duchess titles remain one of the final pieces of value holding their brand above ordinary celebrity status. Meghan continues to use the Duchess of Sussex name because it adds royal importance to almost everything she launches. A lifestyle product feels more exclusive, and a television project receives more attention. A public appearance feels connected to palaces, even though she lives thousands of miles away. Without that title, she would be another celebrity entrepreneur competing in an already crowded market. Harry would still be the king's son, but without a working royal role or an active palace platform, his commercial power could decline. The prediction may never become reality, but it exposes a contradiction they cannot escape. Much of their business identity still relies on the same institution they repeatedly criticize.
Elton John may be called upon to pay for Harry's legal bills, because the legal bills, and I think we're about to find out in the next week how much he could be up for, could be in the tens of thousands. And that might actually bankrupt him, which would be a disaster because, let's be honest, every venture that these two have been on has been a disaster. I don't know how much money that they're getting.
The next major moment is expected to come at a costs hearing in late July, when the financial consequences may become clearer. That hearing will not automatically prove that Harry is bankrupt, that the mansion will be sold, or that the marriage is collapsing, but it could replace rumor with a number that cannot be dismissed. For now, Harry and Meghan can say nothing has been decided. Once lawyers, accountants, and payment demands are sitting in front of them, the crisis becomes far more real. It is easy to defend a principle while the price remains uncertain. It becomes much harder when the cost is measured against mortgage documents, security budgets, and years of future income. Harry's whitewash statement could also return at the worst possible time. Even if it does not formally change the amount, it created an image of a man who cannot accept a ruling without attacking the system. Meghan may see that reaction as another example of emotion-defeating strategy.
Was Harry's bad behaviour before and after the ruling came down that really shocked Elton John. Paula is told that Harry, facing a massive funding shortfall for Invictus, had stopped by Elton and his husband David Furnish's place in the south of France to ask for money before arriving in London. John, already aware that he would be on the hook for the majority of the legal bills should the claimants lose, was not interested in donating, especially as he knew he was facing a massive payout.
She has spent years trying to build a calm, polished business persona, while Harry repeatedly generates headlines involving courts, security, the press, and royal grievances. Every time she attempts to present growth and control, another conflict pulls the couple backward. How long can she keep selling a peaceful lifestyle while her husband remains consumed by war? Eventually, audiences notice when branding and reality do not match. So what happens if the worst financial scenario becomes real? Does Meghan agree to sell Montecito and frame it as a fresh beginning? Does she stand beside Harry while his legal campaign consumes money needed for her business future? Does she push him to repair his friendship with Elton because powerful allies are becoming more important than pride? Or does she decide that protecting her name, her projects, and her financial independence matters more than protecting Harry from the consequences of his own decisions?
Maybe, just maybe, Harry is realizing his wife really sold him a bag of rotten apples and he ate it and he was in the spell, and now the spell is slowly being broken.
Harry promised that life outside the palace would give them control. Yet now, a newspaper group may influence the bill, a court may determine the cost, Elton may decide whether any help arrives, and the property market may decide how much of their dream can be recovered. Megxit was sold as freedom, reinvention, and a better future. Harry and Meghan said they were leaving an unbearable system behind and creating a life on their own terms. But the picture now looks very different. They have a mansion that requires enormous money, famous friendships that may not survive repeated demands, business deals that have not guaranteed permanent security, and a marriage that must absorb every new battle Harry refuses to release. The court case was supposed to deliver justice and prove that Harry could defeat the press. Instead, it may force Meghan to confront the most dangerous question of their relationship. How much of her future is she willing to sacrifice for his past? Will she remain beside him if the bill threatens their savings, their home, and their status? Or will this become the moment she decides that Harry's anger is simply too expensive to keep funding? Tell us what you think below, and subscribe to Hollywood Yesterday, because the next decision could reveal exactly how much this fight has truly cost them.